Hey, this is Brian. Ken Forey loves us. You should listen.
I think what we might consider is what would a punk do? If, we kind of go around the table here and consider ourselves in the same situation. We're at a dinner party, having drinks, everything seems cool, and then event happens. You don't have to necessarily think about it from like the first 15 minutes or whatever, just like your summary of how you might react in a situation such as this. Anyone want to volunteer?
Well, was that?
I would go home.
You would go home.
I would go home.
I don't know if going home is an option though, because like from what it sounds like, as soon as you leave the general vicinity, you will eventually come right back to the same vicinity. Because like if you go down the street, you go to the same house you just came from. So leaving the area doesn't seem like an option.
I'd still go home.
He's gonna try it.
I'd try to stay exactly where I was at. Most of what happened was messed up. In the beginning, when the group of the two moved from one building to the other, which ends up being the same building, then that's when the mix-up started. But then they kept finding really obscure reasons of why they had to go to the other house, and then they start venturing back and forth. In fact, they're talking about marking the house, and one of them says, why don't we just stay inside? And the other says, well, that's just not reasonable. Why is it not reasonable? Just stay in your house. Everything is good in your house, and then when the comet is gone, you're still in the same place. So I would find me some couch space, and I would occupy it fiercely.
I sort of agree with what you're saying, because I think they bring that up in the beginning when two people disappear. They're like, when someone's lost, you stay in one spot. But I think the problem with that is shown in the last scene, right? Is that just because you're in your house doesn't mean all the other people are in their houses.
I have guns in my house. Of course, then my other me's would have guns in my house too.
Right.
That would get interesting.
That's what one of the characters
Figure out which
even
one
says.
of me's is the best shot.
Yeah, they have to fight himself, right?
Yeah.
Equally the same shot.
So
It's yourself.
We'd both be missing wide right.
So you just have to...
I should keep moving to the left and I'm okay.
Brad?
yeah, I mean, I was kind of gonna say similar things. Like I don't know that I personally would go out. I don't know that would be. Wouldn't be the reasoning of like if nothing moves at the end I'll be fine. It's just like fear of the whole process. Like I don't know. I think I would go crazy. Like when that girl was going through the end where she was seeing all the other realities. Like I think I would have a total mental breakdown. Like the explanation of it existing in that. Like
She does handle it very coolly.
yeah, it would just blow my mind.
Actually, as I think about it, I think Brian's suggestion is valid in the sense that like he's operating without knowing all the rules. So it's first introduced as a dinner party and crazy shit happens. Right. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
As soon as this motherfucker leaves, he's in some other quantum dynamic situation at a different house. Entanglement, sure. So like he wouldn't be operating on the idea that if he leaves the house, then it will be a separate reality based on a roulette reel, all that shit. He would just be like, this sucks, I'm leaving. And then as soon as he leaves, he's going to go to the same house and find there's a second Brian in his spot, and now you're fucked, man, because Brian's here and you're outside, and like if a Brian showed up here and you're here, why would I let in another Brian?
Yeah, I already got one of these.
Well, so one of the things they're showing in the movie is you've got a certain baseline Brian. I mean, the one guy who tried to blackmail himself into stopping the other group from getting the book ended up blackmailing himself from himself and another self. So it was like the core Brian is still, fuck this, I'm going home. So if he went and ended up at a different reality, then the Brian in that reality probably would have went as well and ended up in another reality. I'm sure there would have been one somewhere where Brian...
If you knew 100% of the information, you should probably stay at the party. As soon as you leave the party, now you're in the dimension of unknown.
The different realities that they're in are all physical planes of existence. So the comet is in one of those physical planes of existence, right? So how can it be creating infinite number of other physical realities in which the comet is in each one of them, fucking them up? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's science fiction. That's why they put the fiction at the end.
It was weird because there was a heavy pause there.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's science? Oh, no, it's science fiction.
Yes. I mean,
So,
I
yeah.
would think that there would be some type of maybe an electromagnet or some type of a force coming off of the comet that was disrupting the natural forces that kept everything separate. But again, that's Stargate science.
But if I left the party and
making it up,
and went
perhaps
home,
we would have to reverse the polarity. Doesn't everything in sci-fi get fixed by reversing the polarity?
But operating off the rules of the movie. So
if I left the party and went home,
which you couldn't have gotten home based on the rules of the movie.
I don't see why that's true. But
Well, I mean, so we should explain that. My personal sense is that as soon as you left the party, you would walk down the block and you would be encircled by this black mass. And as soon as you went through this dark area, then you'd be entering a different reality, which would lead you back to your original origin point.
so you're saying the comet, whatever effect the comet's having on the Earth, is only happening in that 2-block radius around that dinner
Negative.
party?
Have you ever heard of a bubble universe?
Brian, come on. I know you're a huge fan of bubble universes.
So basically, reality, their basis of it is the quantum mechanics in a system, and the system has all the possible variations existing at the same time until observed. So the comet has created a pocket universe in which each system, and in this case the system is this house full of people, is existing at all of its possible outcomes, but it's also limited to just that system. So they can't leave the system. They're stuck in this pocket universe where the only thing that exists is that house. And then every other house in the neighborhood is in its own pocket universe, that if you go out of the house, the only thing you can do is go back to the house, although not necessarily the same house.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you leaving the party, which would be your initial inclination, would be a bad idea.
Could I just stay outside?
Like, why would she going to stay out? You're just be like on the porch?
I would just curl up on the sidewalk and wait till morning.
Who knows where you'd end up?
Yeah, maybe the sidewalk doesn't exist in the morning.
Or
but that was kind of like when they first came out of the house and they looked around the neighborhood, they were like, there's only one other house that has power. And that was actually their house. But in that particular outcome, later on in the show, they turn on the generator in their house to get power back. So they had a generator, but in that particular one, the other house had turned its generator on before they did.
And there's times they've gone outside and said, I don't see any houses. So there's times they went outside and it was pitch black. So that was
just
either
everything was dark.
pre or post generator.
Yeah,
So Brian's solution would
there's
be
some
to go
gigantic loopholes in the science.
to go on the outside of the house and sleep.
I
until
believe
the morning.
that he would get up on the roof and wait for time to expire.
Either way, yeah, and never defuse the bomb. But beyond Rainbow Six strategy. But the other, just in the back of your mind, thought process, not to make you feel paranoid, but that's what the point of the movie is, I think, is that what if another Brian, there's millions of Brians out there, knows
There'd just be a clusterfuck of Bryans asleep on the sidewalk.
there's a likely chance that you're going to be sleeping on the outside of the house. So I'll just walk across this plane and stab this dumbass laying outside without any protection.
Why am I stabbing myself?
Because, I don't know, maybe a previous Brian, you screwed up his life and felt that, I have an opportunity now to find another Brian who's a little bit more, I don't know, calculated or more concerned about their longevity. I'll kill that guy because he has probably a better life than me because I'm fucked up, Brian.
Well, if the bubble universe started at 8 p.m. of that day, then presumably all the millions of bubble universe Brians share his misanthropy and dislike of social settings. So none of us would want to re-enter the house.
Okay.
None of us would want to replace another one or enter a better party because we would all not want to be at the party. So why would we be stabbing each other?
It's a good question, James. So I guess the question is, up until that point, did all previous Brians share the same existence? Because if all those
based on what I saw in the movie, and in one way it's science fiction and it's a movie, and the premise is that all of them ended up in this house at this party together, regardless of whatever happened before. So there has to be a certain amount of cohesion, because in an unlimited possibilities, all situations possible from before the comet event, then that would mean that most of the houses, they wouldn't all be together, because the chances of everybody coming together and every possible reality on that particular day to be in the house at the same time would be, really, really poor. So in my opinion, realities had already collapsed on each other to the one particular reality until the comet came by, and from the point the comet came by, then everything that they did was every possible possibility. So say like 8 seconds after the comet, then all of the different possibilities should be fairly close to each other, because there's only so many different things you can do in 8 seconds. But then as it progresses and you spend more and more time under the influence of the comet, then each one of those little pocket universes would be more and more different from the ones around it.
Okay, I buy that.
You've also got the reaction to the ring, which was purchased before the comet came, and in one, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's so great, you have that ring that I got you," and in the other, he was like, "I don't understand the ring." So
or you just
it kind of implies both things.
But didn't that happen that day?
Well, she got the ring out of the car.
No. But I thought, wasn't that the beginning of the movie where she's on the phone?
I can actually fix that.
Okay, he can fix it.
So the idea is that like the scene at one of the houses was that his ex-girlfriend comes up and makes out with them. So at that point, they got in a fight, and so the concept of talking about some bullshit ring I bought you 3 months ago has no real consequence or warmth, because we have this conflict. So like whatever. It's not so much that he discarded it. He wasn't excited about it. The other guy who didn't make out with that girl in the red dress, he was like, "Oh yeah, this is great. This is a warm memory that brings me even closer to you."
Thank you. That makes more sense now.
Mm-hmm. So the idea as established in the conversation is that up until the point that the comet hit, all realities were identical. So the same Brian at comet plus 1 second, the same Brian at comet plus 0 seconds is the same. As soon as plus 1 second, different Brians. So as you get from second 1 to minute 3 or hour 1, things divulge, but from moment 0, they're exactly the same.
So chances are there wouldn't have been enough items going on to change Prime Brian to Murder Brian over the course of about 30 minutes.
In the morning, all the millions of Brians go back to just original Brian?
Well, it depends, and that's another conversation thought. But
it would collapse down to whichever individual reality you were in. So the system exists in all possible states unless observed, and when it's observed, it's crashed down into all possible states. So let's just say, as a number, there's 1 million different possible states by the time the comet leaves. Then in whichever system Brian Prime is in, that would be his reality. But Brian B's reality would be in whichever system Brian B was in. They just would no longer have access to the different branches of reality.
They'd both exist, but they wouldn't have ability to connect with each other.
Correct.
I think I would probably try and latch on to at least 1 or 2 people that I knew were from my same reality, just to avoid confusion. It doesn't seem like it would be that terrible. I don't know why everyone's running around killing each other.
Yeah.
It just would be really confusing, because you'd be like, "Oh, yeah, remember we had that hamburger earlier?" And you'd be like, "What hamburger?" Or whatever the situation that Jim was describing, ice cream or shitting yourself or whatever. You just kind of be like, that's weird that he wasn't talking about the ice cream when he was talking about crapping his pants. Because that would be
all your other shared memories before the evening would be the same.
So it would just be like,
yeah.
I mean, I get that's not as an exciting of a movie, but in real life, so I would I would try and be because in the movie, I think the main character woman, she kind of ends up in a reality when she finally figures out there's more than just 2, that there's the roulette wheel sort of thing. She determines that 1 or 2 people are from the same original lineup, I think, or she thinks they are at least. And I would find somebody who had a ping pong paddle and hang out with those people as much as possible, and just latch on to that person to help my sanity.
I would generally say that I'm kind of on the sort of the front end of that conversation, where it's who fucking cares? It's like a 6-hour segment, so it's I've gone out with and gotten totally wasted that I don't remember the last 30 minutes or 6 hours of the evening, and I wake up the next day and someone will say, guess what you did last night, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't remember. And it's like, all right. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or someone
change.
Or like I will call somebody like, oh, it's good seeing you on Tuesday night. And they're like, I don't remember because I was wasted. And it's like, all right, well, you know, it's no big deal.
Or sometimes it's just so trivial. You're like, I don't remember any of that
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. I forget people that I work with all the time, like their names and shit. So,
I have a question. That's sort of maybe jumping back a little bit.
we have two more
sorry.
strategies on what we're going to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll hold
Try
it
not
up.
to get ahead of
This
yourself.
is very important information, Brad.
This isn't all about you and your million other selves.
So your strategy, Brad, would just to hold tight and connect with those that you knew were part of the primary party.
Yeah, and like to the point where like if I was with Jim and Jim was like, guns blazing, I'm gonna go kill my other selves, I'd be like, this is the fucking Jim I'm hanging out with because at least we're from the same reality.
But then you got Jim 2 coming through the windows, blowing people away because his shot is 7 feet to the right.
Oh, okay, well then I'll stay on Jim's left also.
Yeah. I think I'd revise my strategy to try to get all of the gyms together at one time. Just kind of like hang out in the center.
Dominate
just
the
a
reality.
circle around the dark zone so we could all just kind of talk to ourselves.
See, that's not a bad idea, actually. So it's like, say, for instance, I can just like, oh, I know how I am. I'll collect as many Johns as possible, and then like I'll work Monday, and then John 2 will work Tuesday, and there'll be like 6 or 7 Johns, so I work 1 day a week.
There
But then there'd
seemed
be
to be
6 or 7 realities missing a John.
That's fine.
There seemed to be a tribal other animosity between the different characters. Like, I don't think John 1 and John 2 would be okay with each other. There seemed to be a hostility inherent in all those interactions.
That two can't really exist in reality, right? Yeah. If there were 2 of you here, I would be like, well, what the fuck? Like that girl at the end.
With reference to James, is that possible based on the movie rules? Can I have 2 Johns here? At the end of the comic, can I have 2 or 6
Yes,
Johns?
because in at least one reality, there's 2 of the main character. I think what the movie was putting forward was your sense of self. It's, you know, you can't have a strong sense of self if there's another one of you, because now you're no longer yourself.